Joining me now, history professor and author of Obama's America, a transformative vision of our national identity, Ian Reifowitz. Ian, thanks for being here.
Good to see you again, Liz.
All right, Ian, let's just get right to this question of the day. This was quite the event that happened yesterday, actually not too far from where we filmed this show. As you saw, rioters shut down conservative provocateur Milo Yiannopoulos at UC Berkeley last night. He was scheduled to speak. The students claim they're protesting fascism because Milo Yiannopoulos, of course, is a Donald Trump supporter. But Ian, my question is, isn't shutting down free speech, which is what they did to Milo, he had to leave the campus, isn't that the definition of fascism?
What happened there was disgusting, and it was unacceptable. Shutting down free speech is always unacceptable, simply and 100%. So what I saw there disgusted me. The one word I would question in what you've told the audience so far is the word students. Now, I've read media reports on this as well. One report said that, according to Berkeley officials, these were 150 masked agitators, part of an anarchist group known as the Black Bloc that has been making trouble in Oakland for years. Not students. And the Berkeley spokesman said, and this is a quote, the university was essentially invaded by more than 100 individuals clad in ninja-like uniforms.
No, I actually don't disagree with that. I think some of them are rent-a-thugs. These are people who are paid. They're professional agitators. There are some students that were involved in this. We have actually been in contact with one of the students. You know, we invite any Berkeley student who was involved on either side to come on the show at any time. But you're right. I'm glad to hear you condemn this. I'm not surprised. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, I think this is disgusting. But Ian, let me ask you, maybe this is a little bit more of a theoretical question, but you're a college professor. You're a liberal college professor. What do you tell your students who don't agree with you about the value of differing opinions or studying both sides of the aisle?
I tell them that you're not an educated person unless you're willing to hear people who disagree with you. It's that simple. You and I are, I think, 100% on the same page. And I would argue that just about everybody along the left and the right of the American political spectrum is on the same page when it comes to free speech. What happened yesterday was disturbing and very just wrong, just flat out wrong. I don't think there's any question about it. But I would add that there was another part of what happened that concerned me also, and that was President Trump's reaction. He talked about defunding Berkeley. I would argue that it's questionable which is more dangerous, what these outside agitators did, or a president seeking to, or at least talking about taking funding away from a university that educates tens of thousands of people. That's a pretty serious charge to make, and you're talking about collective punishment against innocent students.
Right. No, I don't entirely disagree with you there. I think it would need to be investigated much more deeply than it has been so far to determine whether this was not quite sanctioned, but whether this was enabled by the school here. Because one of the issues that I had here is, where were the police? I mean, we know college campuses are rife with security and police, especially when Milo Yiannopoulos is coming to speak. They're notified in advance. There's massive security charges and fees that Milo is made to pay, and that's both security on campus as well as local police forces. They knew something like this would happen. This, it was organized on social media. They weren't unaware of it. So someone had to be the one to tell the police to stand down, to not get involved until the violence escalated to such a level as the entire nation is shocked here. So if that's the case, if the university was involved in any way with enabling this type of violence, I can understand a threat for your and my taxpayer dollars, Ian, not to be the ones that are enabling that.
Sure. If you found in an investigation that the university was involved, then absolutely. I guarantee you the university wasn't involved. I'll put my professional reputation on the line there. There is no way that any official from Berkeley had anything to do with enabling or even allowing this violence to happen. You had people who are outside agitators. I don't believe they were paid by anybody. I think these are people who get off on chaos. That's what anarchists do. They get off on disruption, and they showed up and gave Mr. Yiannopoulos exactly what he was looking for. What better way to get him out there as a provocateur than to have him to face this kind of violence?
Right. I mean, they proved his point. In one sense, they proved his point that a college campus is not a tolerant place. And speak to me on that again, Ian, as someone who makes their living in this what I consider to be this bubble in a sense. Talk to me about political correctness. We've seen this for the past year. I mean, when we had those chalk drawings that were in support of Trump, so many liberal college students, claimed that they were offended, that they were triggered, that it was a microaggression. I mean, it's gotten to a point that it seems like college campuses aren't this beacon of free thought and education anymore, that they're this bubble of political correctness where if the liberal students don't want to hear it, then the conservatives aren't allowed to say it. To me, that culturally, whether or not the university was involved or not, or these were anarchist groups from the outside, that enables this type of behavior.
I think there are elements of what you're talking about, but I think it's very easy to overblow it. I've seen the same things you've seen. There are been things that have upset me that I've seen. You probably know who Melissa Click is. What she did was disgusting. But I do think it's somewhat overblown. There are a lot of places in this country where people speak up and say they're offended, and other people say, push back against them, and that's all part of the free speech debate. But what we can't allow, and this is, I think, something you and I agree on, is we can't allow disagreements to shut down discussion, to shut down debate. There's question about what kind of speech is free speech. I'm pretty much an absolutist on free speech. Even if somebody is saying something that is hateful or bigoted, I still believe they have a legal right to be able to say it. Other people have a right to shame them for it. That's all part of the social discourse. But nobody should be prevented from speaking.
No, I mean, that's kind of the idea of free speech, of protecting speech. We don't need to have a protection of speech that's non-offensive. No one's going to have an issue with that. We need to protect speech that someone else might say, no, I don't want you to be saying that. And that's why this justification of violence based off of the fact, that they're saying free speech doesn't protect hate speech. I think it does. I think it absolutely does. And it certainly doesn't give you the right to say, as this liberal agitator or as this anarchist agitator to say, I don't like what you're saying, so that justifies me looting and burning and assaulting and setting fires one way or the other. Ian, last question before we have to go. A lot of the mainstream media, the liberal outlets, are calling these peaceful protests. There's nothing about this that's peaceful. I mean, this is not even one of the half and half ones where the fringe is being violent and the rest of the people are being peaceful, yet the overall tone of it ends up being one of violence. This is violence from start to finish. Why does the media want to pretend that it's otherwise if it's not some part of the political correctness issue?
Well, the reports that I read, and look, neither one of us was there, but the reports that I read said that there was a peaceful protest, which was then essentially hijacked by these outside anarchists, that the students were not part of the violence, that the outsiders came in and started blowing stuff up. The big losers here were the liberal protesters. It was not in their interest to start setting fires or doing these idiotic things that they were doing. So my suspicion is that the mainstream media got it right, that it was a peaceful protest that was taken over by these agitators, this black bloc or whoever they are.
Right, and I think we'll find as the days unfold that some liberal students on campus did stick around. They didn't just scatter. If this was, in fact, an invasion, they were involved, whether or not they were the instigators. Ian, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's always great to talk to you.